Facebook or Fakebook, a closer look into online identity. Let's take a look at my Facebook profile page. Goffman says when an individual enters the presence of others, they commonly seek to acquire information about him or bring into play information about him already possessed. I argue that my identity shown using my Facebook profile is nothing more than an attempt at creating first impressions. It is not a tool to create a false self or a self that we want to be, but instead symbols, photos, and text all contribute to an online creation of a snapshot for a first impression. By using the tools Facebook offers, I create an identity based on the initial impression I want others to have. This is very similar to first impressions made in face-to-face communication, being that the only difference is everyone can now view it 24/7. First, let's take a look at the About Me section of my Facebook profile. The About Me section allows people to seek standard information about myself, like current statuses. It states my employee status, my living situation, my education, and my relationship status. All of these things are common questions asked upon meeting someone, especially for the first time. Facebook allows me to take these first impression style questions to show anyone anytime. Boehm argues that mediated encounters have the potential to liberate people from the constraints of their social context. Upon meeting someone face to face, you will most likely ask questions like, what is your relationship status? However, you are able to rely on other things, like looking to see if someone's wearing a wedding ring. Facebook allows one to construct their identity as if it is unchanging without the constraints of having to ask questions or assume. I'm not married, but that doesn't mean I'm necessarily available. I construct this part of my identity through simple text, which is constrained in face-to-face contact. I choose to include this information to instill in others the usual information obtained when meeting someone for the first time face-to-face. Facebook also allows users to post their interests and likes. All of my likes and interests, such as movies, books, fashion, Rutgers-related pages, etc., all help in constructing first impressions that I want others to see. I select and choose the ones which I want to add and which ones I don't. Does this mean they are false? No. Authentic self-representation is not always a simple question of true and false. I am more just illustrating a first impression that I want others to see, and since first impressions hold in one's mind, like Facebook is up 24/7, you want to be seen as general as possible. People will get a sense that I am a Rutgers student, I like to read, I am most likely a girl that enjoys romantic comedies and is interested in fashion. I choose to include these things so people will get a quick look and better construction of what kind of person I am without being clouded by other things that might be less important to my identity. I may choose to not include that I like the movie Despicable Me because people might get an impression that I am younger than I am or childish. I construct my identity on Facebook as if people see me for the first time, and I wouldn't want the possibility of people assuming something I feel I am not. People have only the information they see to make an impression, so I create an identity that looks good on paper, or in this case on screen. Let's move on to look at my profile picture. There is a saying that a picture speaks 1,000 words. Profile pictures allow users to select one photo to represent their whole profile and ultimately their online identity. My profile picture is one of me dressed up for Halloween, laughing with my best friend and having a good time. So what does it say? I've constructed a first impression to show people that I think I am easygoing and friendly versus disagreeable and intimidating. People view our profile and determine their own views and interpretations by the visuals and symbols we provide. In such one-way communication, we try to construct representations of ourselves with one photo. I want to give a good first impression, so I choose one that I feel had connotations of my personality. Mendelsohn and Papakarasi say that the comments posted by friends reinforce group cohesiveness and closeness. We leave comments and like photos on Facebook to show others that we know each other and we have some relationship. We do not necessarily leave comments because we think that person will be offended if we don't. Instead, we are constructing part of our identity that we belong to some group of people and that we are social in the sense that we have a lot of friends. By leaving a description of my profile picture, I am not only showing an impression that I have a best friend, but also the strength of our relationship. I am constructing this identity that I am social. Recently, Facebook has introduced what is called a cover photo in addition to a profile picture. Now we can further our identity with two main photos. My cover photo is a picture of me and my roommates all wearing Rutgers shirts before the football game. A large part of my identity offline is that I am a Rutgers college student. I construct this part of my identity online as a big part of who I want others to see me as by making it my cover photo. Cover photos are the are one of the first things people see on profile pages, and therefore one of the first symbols that construct impressions. I have constructed my profile so at first glance, people can immediately get a sense of my age and education status. Photos have the ability to be tagged and untagged on Facebook. Does this falsely construct our identity? Goffman talks about defensive and protective practices that people use to avoid embarrassment. This is done in the same way by untagging photos. Think about before Facebook when you had a physical photo albums and you showed your friends. Did you show them that one horrible picture of you picking your nose? Probably not. This is done in the same way with untagging photos on Facebook. We are not being fake or prompting our self-esteem, but we want to just construct a first impression that makes our identity look good and embarrassment-free. Photos are still images that speak for themselves, so we choose those which are best to represent a more perfect impression of our identity of ourselves. Lastly, statuses allow users to constantly reinforce their constructed identities. My cover photo is a picture of me at a Rutgers football game. I'm constantly reinforcing my identity as a Rutgers college student by making statuses about Rutgers football. My online identity is further reinforced and updated by posting these statuses. We are able to reconstruct and confirm this idea of creating first impression by the text that complements symbols already on our profiles. This is a way to further ensure that we are instilling the right impression and a way to affirm that this impression is true and relevant. Foggy mirror is a term saying people are not lying per se, but their self-image differs from others' perceptions. Their textual self-descriptions would diverge from third parties' descriptions. It is hard to describe yourself and even harder to give people a representation of your identity without you there to give an explanation. With my online identity on Facebook, I am merely attempting to present my best possible construction of a first impression on people. I want to put all accurate information through my interests, photos, comments, and statuses that all give a snapshot of my identity offline. My online identity on Facebook is a way to construct an online first impression, not a way to represent a false self. A good way to exemplify this point of only using Facebook online identity as if it is a first impression is to look at celebrities' Facebook profile pages. Here is Victor Cruz's profile. If we were to just look at his page for less than 30 seconds, we would have an accurate impression formed. Let's take a closer look. All Facebook profiles have similar things to be included in the About Me section. Right away, you can see his occupation, his education, where he lives, and that he is a celebrity. These are all standard questions that are used to construct our identity and easily used by online tools. We can also see his likes and interests. Not many people know Victor Cruz on a personal level, so he puts up like and interests to give people a glimpse of his identity. He likes comedy talk shows, his own football team, sports games, and a few endorsements. He only gives you a glimpse for you to form a first impression that he is a football player who likes sports. He doesn't include any movies or clothing because he wants people to form this impression that his main identity is a football celebrity. He is not being false by doing this, but just ensuring what he wants as a first impression. Now let's take a look at his profile picture. He chooses a picture of himself dressed in a suit, smiling and laughing. He, similar to me, picked a picture that would form a first impression of what he may be like. This picture gives a construction that he's personable, friendly, and easygoing. Also, that maybe he is more than just a football player. He chooses this picture with the idea that his profile was like a first impression and he had only one shot. He wanted to pick one that swayed people to believe what he feels his identity is. Looking at his cover photo, we further get proof of his impression identity construction. His cover photo is a picture of himself in a football uniform on the field. People know him as a player for the Giants, making it a large part of his identity. Upon looking at his cover photo, which is one of the first things our eyes fall on, you're already forming an impression of who he is. He, like I, is only creating a first impression. He wants to have an image where he looks good on screen, not pictures of him drinking or where he would be embarrassed. They are all pictures of him playing football, at events, or doing endorsements. He will untag as a way to protect his online identity as a first impression builder. He is not being deceiving, but instead does not want his first impression to be overrun by unwanted photos. Statuses, as explained before, allow us to reinforce our constructed identity. Victor Cruz has constructed this first impression that he's a football player, but may also be easygoing, as seen through his cover photo and profile picture. He further reconstructs his identity by adding statuses thanking his fans and statuses about his football playing. This idea of first impression gets reinforced. So in conclusion, when we construct our online identity, we are not being fake or manipulative. We are creating a first impression for other people. Facebook allows people to view oneself anywhere, anytime, so we need to create consistent snapshot representation as if it were like a first impression. We want to include only information that gives a first impression that would be as if we were meeting someone for the first time face to face, and that affirms our identity offline. We like to assume that celebrities are fake online because they only show us what we want, but we do the same on our Facebook page. This does not mean we are being fake though, but only that we construct our identity so people get an imprint or screenshot of what we may be like. The reason we include and do not include other info is so people will not waver due to only one symbol or one embarrassing photo.